Blog Talk Radio.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ. بحر
دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. الله يا حي خبير خبر واحد معبود ليه أمر أبونا رزق الطير في الفضا والبر نعم كثيرة لم تحصر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. الله يا حي خبير خبر واحد معبود ليه أمر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
رزق الطير في الفضا والبر نعم كثيرة لم تحصر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. وبسني بأليه أمر جاف بالعين جاب منه خبر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
فروضا 5 وبيها أمر كتاب وسنن علم أخضر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. وبسني بأليه عبر شاب العين جاب منه خبر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
فروضا 5 وبيها أمر كتاب وسنن علم أخضر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. وصحبه ركبوا في البنصر سيوف تصيب بروك في مطر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
جابوا الكافر أسير من جر مشبول بالقيد مربوط في حجر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. وصحبه ركبوا في البنصر سيوف تصيب بروك في مطر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
جابوا الكافر أسير من جر مشبول بالقيد مربوط في حجر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ.
أبونا الديم كلام درر عبد الله وليه ذكر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
أتاه الغيث نزل له مطر وقام له شجر مال سمر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ.
أبونا الديم كلام درر عبد الله ليه ذكر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
أتاه الغيث نزل له مطر وقام له شجر مال سمر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ.
خزين الله ذهب أحمر فد يوم من قام عليها نظر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
أمانتك وخدتها ككرملاك واقطب واقفل له غفر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ.
خزين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh, and welcome to the class that we have every Saturday night, 9 o'clock, with the Ustadh Ahmed Mubarak, and it's, of course, the Rissala of Ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawaanee. I believe this is lesson number 4, so it's the 4th week. We took last week off, mashallah ta'ala, but we're back on, and we're going to bring the instructor on right now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. It's yours whenever you're ready, see.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam ajma'in. City, Naeem, City Hanif mentioned, this is the 4th week of the Rissala of Ibn Abi Zayd, the Maliki, the intermediate Maliki Fiqh text, and I think last time we left off on Ghusl. So, we're going to continue the bab on the ghusl. Again, 30 minutes into the show, we'll take a break because I have to perform Salat al-Maghrib. Then we'll shortly, and after I complete the Maghrib, we'll wrap up however far we get, and then we'll have a short question and answer. So, without any further ado, the Bab on the Ghusl. The Sheikh says, أما طاهر فهو من جنابة من حيض ونفس سوء فإن اقتصر مطهر على الغسل دون الوضوء أجزاء وأفضل له أن يتوضأ بعد يبدأ بالغسل أن يبدأ بالغسل ما بفرج الجسد ومن أذى ثم يتوضأ وضوء صلاة فإن شاء غسل رجليه إن شاء أخرها إلى آخر الغسل. The Sheikh says the purification or the ghusl for a major sexual defilement, this is called janaba, or it's for menstruation, it's for afterbirth, it's all the same. If someone purifies himself by ghusl alone and omits during the wudu, that suffices, but it is better for him to do the wudu. After cleaning the offensive matter from his sexual part of his body, he does wudu as it is done before the salat. He can wash his feet then if he wishes, or leave them until the end of the ghusl. So from here we understand from the text that washing the feet, or the tartib, or the wudu, doing the tartib, or the chronological order of the wudu and doing the ghusl is not mandatory here. He said, but it's better. But it is better, and actually the washing of the feet can wait until after the ghusl. This is the Maliki opinion. The Shafi opinion is that it must be done with tartib, or it must be done in chronological order, but not so with the Malikiya. The point is that the parts must be, this is for the ghusl, that all the parts must be washed. And also with the intention for the ghusl, there's different intentions for removing the impurities from the sexual organ. That is the intention that was called niyat al-rafa hadatha, or the intention to raise the impurity. That's different from the intention which is made for the ghusl itself. So that's one intention, and then after one does that, then one makes another intention for the ghusl, and then one performs the ghusl. So then he says, ثم يغمس يديه في الإناء ويرفعها غير القبض بهما شيء فيخلل بهما أصول شعر رأسه ثم يغرف بهما الماء على رأسه 3 غرفات غسلا له بهن وتفعل ذلك المرأة وتدعث شعر رأسها وليس عليه حال أقاسها. He says the person then dips his hands into the jug, raises them without scooping any water with them, and runs over the scalp. So now he's explaining how to perform the ghusl. He said next he pours 3 handfuls of water unto his head, washing his head with the water. A woman does likewise and rubs her hair, but she does not need to undo her braids. Right, so again, for the Malikiya, in regards to the hair, I know there's some difference of opinions. You know, some, like particularly the Ahnaf, are the opinion that every single hair must be wet. But according to the Malikiya, this is not a precondition for one. Allah didn't specifically mention that in the verse when He says "Wamsuhu bi rusukum," or rub your heads. Likewise, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to do ghusl with sa'at, and which is double that of a mud. He used to do wudu with the mud. Now, according to some of the scholars, it's like 3.14 liters of water. So how is it possible how is it feasible that it feel possible to wet every single last hair of the head with this small amount of water, which the Prophet ﷺ used to use for performing the ghusl? And so we see here that in the text of the Rissala we have a clear indication that when doing the ghusl, the only thing which must be done far as with the hair is that 3 handfuls of water must be poured on the head, and the water must be rubbed into the head, and this suffices. And even the chef mentions that the women don't have to undo their braids. Likewise, like if a man had for example, dreads or something, of course you can't undo them in that manner, so this will suffice. He says, ثم يفيض الماء على شق اليمين ثم على شقة أيسر يتدلك بيده بأثرها صب الماء حتى يعمل جسده ومع الشق أن يكون الماء أخذه من الجسد عودة بالماء ودلك بيده حتى يعبر جميع الجسد. He says the person next, he pours water into the right side of the body, then to the left, rubbing with his hands after pouring the water until he does this over the whole body. Whenever he is not sure that the water has touched, he pours more water on that spot and rubs with his hand until he covers the whole body. This is another shart, or this is a shart or condition in the Maliki school in regards to the ghusl, that every part of the body which can be rubbed must be rubbed. This is called the dalk. This is called the dalk. So with the hand, one must go over the body with the water. Now again, if we remember from a couple weeks ago, when we were talking about the different parts of water. The different types of water and what's required to cleanse a defilement. We stated that in regards to purifying one from a defilement, that the water must be pure water. It can't be mixed with soap or any of these things. That's not to say you can't use soap, but if you use soap, you do it after you do the ghusl. All right. So when you do the ghusl, when you're purifying yourself from the defilements, this should be done with pure water. And the reason why this is a shart in the Maliki school is that it's called water. If you remember, if something has been changed so much to the fact that it's not called water, even though it may be pure, it's still by the hour, meaning it can't be used. And so after one has cleansed himself with the water, then they can use soap and things like this. It's going to the same with washing clothes. He says ويتابع عمق السرة تحت حلقه ويخلى شعر لحيته وتحت جناحية وبين يديه ولقيته تحت ركبته سافل رجليه ويخلى أصابها يدها ويغسل رجليه وقال ذلك يجمع ذلك فيهما لتم غسله وتم وضع أن كان وإن كان أخرى غسلهما. He says after this, he does the inside of the navel, between the chin and the throat, inside the hair of the beard, the armpits, between the buttocks, the upper thighs, behind the knees, the lower parts of the feet. Washes between the fingers, and at the end washes his feet as if he has postponed doing so, including in the ghusl in order to complete both his ghusl and his wudu. Right. So he says, so the feet again. So if one is doing the ghusl, like after they wash the right and the left side of the body, if they've he's speaking here as if they've prolonged the washing the feet, like as if they didn't do the wudu first. Right. So you have the preferred way is to first cleanse the sexual organs from any impurity, and then do the wudu, and then proceed with the ghusl. But if one omits the wudu after cleaning the sexual organs, then one just does the feet at the end. And this is what he means here. He says, ويزداد أن يمس ذكره في تدلق ببطان كفة فإن فعل ذلك وقد أعوب الطهر عاد الوضوء وإن مسه في ابتداء غسله وبعد أن غسل مواضع الوضوء منه فيمر بعد ذلك بيده على مواضع الوضوء بالماء على ما ينبغي من ذلك ينيع. He says he should be careful not to rub his penis with his palm while he is scrubbing himself. If he does this, if he does that after completing his ghusl, then he must repeat his wudu. But if he does this at the beginning of his ghusl and after having washed the parts where the wudu is done, he should just run water over these parts again with his hands in the manner which is required, together with making the intention. So next, the next part is the bab of Tayammum. Alright, so Tayammum is of course the rukhsah, or the dispensation given when, due to various reasons, one cannot make wudu, one cannot purify themselves for prayer or reading the Quran with water. This is called Tayammum. Right? And so the Imam says Tayammum يجب لعدم الماء من سفر إذا يأس أن يجده في وقت، وقد يجب مع وجود إذا لم يقدر على مسه في سفر أو حضر المرض المانع أو مريض يقدره على مسه ولا يجد من يناول الرياء، وكذلك مسافر يقرب منه الماء ويمنعون منه خوف لصوص أو صباغ، وإذا يقين مسافر بوجود الماء في وقت آخر إلى الآخر، وإن يسم منه تيمم في أولى، وإن لم يكن عنده منه علم تيمم في وسطه، وكذلك إن خاف أن لا يدرك الماء في وقت رجاء أن يدركه فيه. He says Tayammum is obligatory. Alright, this is obligatory for certain categories of people. The first one is the person who has no water while traveling and has no hope of finding it in time. The second category is there is water for the person, but the person cannot touch it due to some sickness which may prevent them. The third category is if the person is sick, can't touch the water, but has no one to bring it to him. Right? So a person is sick, they can do wudu, but they're so sick that maybe they can't move, no one can bring it to them. In that case, they can do tayammum also. It's also obligatory for a traveler who comes near water but is kept back by fear of thieves or wild animals. So if one is prevented from getting the water. The fifth category is a traveler who is sure of finding water within time of the salat. He should postpone doing the tayammum up until the limit of the time allowed. If he has no hope of finding it, he should do tayammum at the beginning of the time. So let me repeat that. He says if the traveler is sure of finding water within the time of salat, he should postpone doing the tayammum up until the limit of the time allowed. But if the person has no hope of finding water, then he should do the tayammum at the beginning of the time. So this is left to the discretion of the traveler. He says if he does not know if there is water, he should do tayammum in the middle of his time. He says so also should someone also who fears he will not reach water in time, although he hopes to reach it in time. Right, so these are the cases in which tayammum is necessary. Right, and so even the scholars have said, for example, there's a certain distance one must travel to look for water before tayammum is allowed. Some scholars say a mile. It differs upon like the locality, and if one is in a forested area or a desert area. But basically, what the Imam said here, he divided into people who have. If a person has any inkling that they'll do it before, then they should postpone the salat. But if they're not sure, or if they have no hope of doing it, then they should just do the tayammum and then perform the salat. Or he says if a person just don't know, another case is just to do it, in the middle time. He says, وَمِنْ تَيَمَّنْ مِنْ هَؤُلَاءِ ثُمَّ أَصَابَ الْمَاءَ فِي الْوَقْتِ بَعْدَ أَنْ صَلِّ فأما مريض الذي لم يجد من يناول إياه فليعود، وكذلك خائف من صباح ونحوها، وكذلك مسافر الذي يخاف أن لا يدرك الماء في الوقت ويرجع أن يريق فيه ولا يعيد غير هؤلاء، ولا يصلي صلاتين بتيمم واحد من هؤلاء إلا مريض، ولا يقدر على مس الماء لضروري من جسمه مقيما، وقد قيل يتيمم لكل صلاة، وقد روى عن المالك رضي الله تعالى عنه في من ذكر صلوات يصليها بتيمم واحدة. The Imam says, any of these people who do tayammum and then find water in time, but after doing the salat, they should repeat their salat. This applies to a sick person who had no one to bring him the water. And this also applies to the person who was afraid of wild animals or a similar danger. And it also applies to the traveler who feared he would not reach water in time, even though he hoped to reach it in time. No one besides these three should repeat a salat. So if you're not of these three, I'll read them again. Then if water is found, you don't need to repeat the salat. The first one is a sick person who had no one to bring him the water. The second is the person who was afraid of wild animals or similar danger. The third is the traveler who feared that he would not reach the water in time, even though he hoped to reach it in time. No one besides these three should repeat the salat if they found water during the tayammum time. He says neither should any of these former 7 mentioned do 2 salat with 1 tayammum, except a sick person who cannot touch water because of a sore on his body. One opinion is that tayammum should be done before every salat, but it is reported from Malik radiallahu ta'ala anhu that someone who remembers several salat that he missed should do them with the tayammum. Okay, I gotta explain something here because this can be a little confusing. The general opinion is that for every act of worship, one can do tayammum, right? So, say for example, Dhuhr comes in, then one can do tayammum for that salat, right? But one cannot pray after with that same tayammum because it's a dispensation, it's a ruqsa, and we don't take a ruqsa upon a ruqsa. So this is different, though. He mentions here the opinion that Imam Malik said that one could, if one is making up salat, then they can do more than one make-up salat with tayammum. This is different than, for example, being in the time of specific salat and doing tayammum from a time of another salat. This is in the case of qada. This is not in the case of the hadir, or that which is present, not due to negligence. Okay, and so likewise, tayammum could be. It's also used to touch the Quran, or to give the khutbah of Jummah. Right. So these acts would necessitate a tayammum. But say, for example, one did tayammum for Dhuhr, then they can still read the Quran with the same tayammum. They just couldn't carry it over to another prayer time, and pray another obligatory salat with that same tayammum. So it says, kayfiyat tayammum, or how to perform the tayammum. He says, وَتَيَمَّمْ بِالصَّعِيدِ الطَّاهِرِ وهو ما ظهر على وجه الأرض منها من تراب أو رملة أو حجارة أو صبخة. Right? He says tayammum should be done on a clean surface. This is soil, sand, rocks, or salt deposits which protrude out from the surface of the earth. Next he says, ويضرب بيده الأرض فإن تعلق بهم شيء نفضهم نفضا خفيفا ثم يمسح بهما وجها كلها مساح ثم يضرب بيده الأرض فيمسح يمنى بيساره ويجعله أصابع يديه يسري على أطراف أصابع يديه يميني ثم يمر أصابع على ظهر يديه وذراعه وقد حتى عليه أصابع حتى يبلغ مرفقين ثم يجعل كيفية على البطن الضرع على الطي مرفقها فأقابلا عليه حتى يبلغ القو من يده يميني ثم يجري بطن بهم على ظهر بهم يد يمنى. He says the person taps the earth with his hands. If anything sticks to then he can just shake it off. Right. Then he wipes his whole face. Then he taps the earth again with both hands and wipes his right hand with his left, putting the fingertips of his left hand against those of his right hand, and running his fingers over the surface of his right hand and arm with his fingers bent until he reaches the elbows. Then he puts the palm of his left hand on the inside of his right arm at the bend of his elbow, pressing against it until he reaches the wrist of the right hand. Then he runs the inside of his left thumb up against the outside of his right thumb. Right, so basically he's wiping the entire, and when he says yad here, it's synonymous with dhara. Dhara is arm, but yad also here in this context, yad or hand can also mean the entire arm. This is another reason why we don't say that Allah literally has a hand. Like, what do you mean by the hand? Does he have an elbow and a wrist? Because in the Arabic language, all of that, consisting of the elbow, the forearm, all this is still considered yet. He says, ثم يمسح يسرى بيمينه هكذا فإذا بلغ قول مسح كفاته يمنى بكفاته يسري إلى آخر أطرافها ولو مسح يمنى بيسري ويسري بيمينه كيف لشيء كيف شاء تيسر عليه وعود مسح الأجزاء. He said next he wipes his left hand and arm with his right in the same way. When he reaches the wrist, he wipes his right hand with his left hand until the end of his fingertips. If he wipes his right hand with his left hand and his left hand with his right any way he wishes, it's easy for him and it's complete, then this in itself should suffice. He says, وإذا لم يجد جنب أو حائط الماء يطهر تيمم وصيلة فإذا وجد الماء تطهر ولم يعيد ما صليها ولا يطال الرجل امراته التي انقطع عنها دم الحيض أو نفاس بالطهارة بالتيمم حتى يجزم الماء من تطهر به امرأة ثم ما يطهران به جميعا. وفي باب الجامع الصلاة شيء في مساحر التيمم. He says those who have had a major sexual defilement, which is janaba or menstruation, and cannot find water to purify themselves with any, they do tayammum and then they do their salat. If they find water, they should do the ghusl, but not repeat the salat. This is afterwards, of course. If a woman's menstruation or afterbirth bleeding has stopped and she has purified herself by tayammum, her husband is not to have intercourse with her until he finds water for his wife to bathe with, moreover enough for them both to bathe with. There are some questions on tayammum in the chapter, the miscellaneous questions on salat, which we will do after the Bab on the Salat. In the next chapter he comes to is the chapter of wiping over the leather boots, or what's called the khufayn. He says, وَلُهُ أَمْ يَسَّعَ عَلَى الْخُفَّيْنِ مِنْ حَذْرِ وَصَفْرِ مَا ما لم ينزع أمها وذلك لم أدخل فيها رجليه بعد غسلهما وفي وضوء فحل به الصلاة فهذا الذي إذا أهدت توضى مسح عليهما وإلا فلا. وصفاتهم مسح أن يجعل يدي يمين على الفوق على الخف من طرف الأصابع ويديه يسرى أن تحت ذلك ثم يذهب بيده إلى حد الكعبين وكذلك يفعل بيسري ويجعل يديه يسري من فوقها ومن يمنى ومن أسفلها ولا يمسها على طين من أسفل خف وورث دبة حتى يزال بمسها وغسل. وقيل يبدأ في مسها أسفلها من كعبين إلى أطراف أصابعها يصلي إلى العقبة خف شيء ومن رطوبة وما سمح من خفي من قشب وإن كان في أسفل الطين فلا يمسح عليها حتى يزالوا. He says a person may wipe over the book may wipe over the khuffayn instead of his feet in wudu, whether the person is traveling or not, as long as he does not take them off and put them on again after having washed his feet in wudu permitting salat. Only such a person and no one else may wipe his boots while performing wudu for a minor defilement. To wipe the boots, a person puts his right hand over his right boot at the end of the toes and his left hand on the underside. Then he runs his hands to the end of the ankles. He does the same thing for his left foot, except for putting his left hand above and his right hand below. He is not to wipe his hands over mud or animal dung on the bottom of his boot until he has scraped it or washed it off. According to another opinion, one begins by wiping the bottom from the ankles to the sides of the toes to prevent the moisture of any filth that he wiped from his shoes from reaching the heel of his boot. If there is any mud on the bottom of the boot, he should not wipe his boot until he has removed the mud. And this is a contentious issue, particular, for a lot of Muslims nowadays. There's a lot of questions on whether or not it is, permissible to wipe over gym socks, regular socks. According to the school of the people of Medina, the school of Imam Malik, it is not permissible to wipe over anything except for the khuffayn, or the leather socks. And the reason is, again, first of all, it is a rukhsa, it is a dispensation. It is something which, out of Allah's mercy, He has allowed the alleviation of one shart for whatever reason. There's a divine wisdom and command behind it. But we can't take it upon ourselves to make another rukhsa out of a rukhsa. In the Arabic language, the khuffayn has a specific meaning. It's a specific thing. It has a specific meaning. And so you can't go outside of the meaning or try to redefine it as other than what it is. Contrary to popular belief, the khuffayn is not socks. A khuf is a leather boot, it looks like a boot, which covers the entire foot up to the ankles, and it's made from an Islamically slaughtered animal. And again, the khuf in the Arabic language is a leather boot or boot-like material. It covers the entire foot and the ankles. It's made from leather. That leather is from an Islamically slaughtered animal. It is not cotton socks. That's not a khuf. In Arabic, that's called jawab al-qasr. Actually, that's a new phenomenon. They didn't even have socks then. That's a totally foreign entity. It's not a khuf, so therefore it cannot be used. Furthermore, one of the reasons why the khuf, why Allah gave us the dispensation for using the khuf, is that the feet don't get wet. If one were to wipe over, these regular socks, whatever, they could still feel moist, water, because it would penetrate the cotton. Right? This goes against the whole purpose of using the khuf. Right? There is, and according to when I studied the other schools, I also studied the Shafi school in depth. It's also the opinion of the Shafi school. It's also the opinion of the Hanafi school. It's also the opinion of the Hanbali school. Although, in all fairness, I did hear, although I didn't see it for myself, I did hear that recently some Hanbali scholars came out and said that, in their school, that if long as socks met the conditions and that water does not penetrate the feet, that would be acceptable. I said, but I haven't seen any evidence to that. But the consensus, the verified opinion amongst the 4 Sunni schools is that the khuffain is the only thing that which can be wiped over in regards to the foot, not socks, not, tennis shoes. Again, it has to cover the ankle. It has to be made from the skin from an Islamically slaughtered animal. Right? And so these other things does not meet these requirements, therefore they are not a khuf. Therefore one cannot wipe over them as a dispensation. One must take off the socks and wash the feet. With that, we will pause. It's 38 after while I perform Salat al-Maghrib. We'll come back and we'll try to wrap it up. We'll try to get to we'll get through the times of Salat. We'll probably get to the Adhan. So with that, Imam Hanif, I must perform Salat al-Maghrib. So,
all right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're just pausing for about, 5 to 10 minutes so that the Ustadh, he can go and perform Salat al-Maghrib. He's working with the Central Town. And, if you have any questions or whatever, write them down, and we'll get to him before he gets back. I know I have a few questions myself, inshallah, especially about that wiping over the cotton sock, which is one of the major innovations you got going on in our age. It's a notion, one of those notions that must be corrected. Alhamdulillah. Some of the brothers in North America take on the task of putting together a little something dealing with that issue. The Kitab Masal Muhimma, which is a book that I think is good for anybody, who's interested in that particular issue, as well as the issues concerning creed. The Khola, being 3 periods as opposed to being 1, and also this halal meat situation that you got going on here, this innovation that we can eat, the meat of Christians, even if they, slaughter, shoot animals in the head and stuff like that. Alhamdulillah, like I said, you can order that book on, by the way, NurzaMan.org. NurzaMan Institute.org. And, just go right to the bookstore, the online bookstore we got there. And, you can grab that, inshallah. In the meantime, like you said, we're just taking a short break there. And,
the oppression will continue to happen. So raise your voice and do not be ashamed. If you want to...
MashaAllah, I thought that was something different there. Sorry about that. That right there is not what I thought it was. MashaAllah.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ. بحر
دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. الله يا حي خبير خبر واحد معبود ليه أمر أبونا رزق الطير في الفضا والبر نعم كثيرة لم تحصر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. الله يا حي خبير خبر واحد معبود ليه أمر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
رزق الطير في الفضا والبر نعم كثيرة لم تحصر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر
يا شيخ. وبسني بأليه أمر جاف بالعين جاب منه خبر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
فروضا 5 وبيها أمر كتاب وسنن علم أخضر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. وبسني بأليه عبر شاب بالعين جاب منه خبر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
فروضا 5 وبيها أمر كتاب وسنن علم أخضر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. وصحبه ركبوا في البنصر سيوف تصيب بروك في مطر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
جابوا الكافر أسير من جر مشبول بالقيد مربوط في حجر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا
الشيخ. وصحبه ركبوا في البنصر سيوف تصيب بروك في مطر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر
جابوا الكافر أسير من جر مشبول بالقيد مربوط في حجر أبونا الشيخ.
بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ.
أبونا الديم كلام درر. بحر دفر جاب الغمة خلى نفر أبونا الشيخ.
وكتبه ورسوله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله والبعث بعد الموت. لا إله إلا الله آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسوله واليوم الآخر والقدر خيره وشره من الله والبعث بعد الموت. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And we're ready to go.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, so now we're gonna do the section on the times for the salat, and probably the adhan and the iqama. So hopefully we'll pick up next week on the actual how to perform the salat, kayfiyat al-salat. One side note: this is very important. This section right here, although it's not long, it's small, but it's very important because nowadays we've got used to using these prayer time sheets and watches and clocks. You know, we've gotten away from the sunnah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you know we can't even tell when the time for salat is. You know, if we don't have our little modern convenient devices, and this is a problem. Every Muslim who is obligatory upon them to perform the salat should be able to, without these devices, determine the times of salat so that they can perform the salat. And a lot of times too, a lot of these prayer calculation sheets and things of this matter, they're wrong. I'm not saying they're all wrong, but a lot of them are wrong. At least according to the school of Imam Malik, there's certain conditions which must be met for, in determining the prayer times. And a lot of times the calculations are not, they don't calculate them according to, the standards by which the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam set. So, inshallah, this is a short chapter, but it's very important. So, inshallah, take notes and pay attention so that, if one doesn't already know how, if one knows, alhamdulillah, it's just a refresher, but if one doesn't know, this is a very, very beneficial section, how to determine the different times of salat. So he starts off with the morning prayer. He says, أما صلاة الصبح فهو صلاة الوسطى عند أهل المدينة وهي صلاة الفجر فأول وقتها استدعها فجر متردى بالضية في الأقصى المشرق ذهبا من قبلة إلى دبر قلة حتى يرتفع فيهن الفاق وآخر وقت أسفار بين الذي إذا سل منها بدا حاجب الشمس وما بين هذين وقت واسع وأفضل لك وأفضل ذلك أولى. He says the salat of the subh is the middle salat according to the people of Medina. And there's in the Quran when Allah says guard the prayer, Allah says guard the prayer, especially the middle prayer. There's a difference of opinion between the schools on what the middle prayer is. The dominant opinion amongst the other schools, and even some of the later Malikis, was that the middle prayer is the Asr prayer, because it's done in the middle of the day. But according to the original opinion, Imam Ibn Abi Zayd says, according to the opinion of the people of Medina, to Malik's time, that the Salat al-Wusta, the middle salat, was the subh prayer, and that was the middle prayer, because the subh prayer, actually the Maghrib prayer would be the first prayer, right? Because the day actually begins at nightfall. It doesn't begin at daytime. So the Maghrib prayer would be the first prayer. The Isha prayer would be the second prayer, and the Fajr would be the Salat al-Wusta. And then, in conjunction with that, they bag the people of Medina uses evidence as the many hadiths on the merits of the Salat al-Fajr, where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, صلي صلاة الصبح في مسجد فإن صلاة الصبح شهودا. Pray the morning prayer in the masajid, for surely that prayer is witnessed by the angels. And at the two ends of the day, one of them is at the Fajr, and the other is afternoon. The angels come, the angels descend, and they ascend to the heavens. And they go back and they report to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah asks them, how did you find my servants? That we found them praying, we found them, and what were they saying? They praised you and they glorified you, and he asked them and what did they ask? They asked for your forgiveness. Very, very, very famous hadith. The two times when the deeds are accepted or rejected is during the subh in the afternoon. So this is why, according to the people of Medina, it was believed that the Salat al-Fajr is the Salat al-Wusta mentioned in the Quran, and not the Salat al-Asr. So he says the Salat al-Subh, the middle Salat, according to the people of Medina, is the Salat of the dawn. Its time starts from the break of dawn, when the light is spread from the extreme east of the Qibla to the opposite end of the horizon, thus covering the whole sky. The end of the time is the isfa. It's like the bright. It's like the radiance, which gives directly to the appearance of the sun. The time between the aureole of the sun. The time between these times is long, but the preferred time is at the beginning. Okay, so after the third part of the night, there's a streak of light, which if you look at and if everyone should try this, go out at Fajr, and you'll see. Actually, there's two dawns. They say one is the fake dawn, one is the they call Fajr Asli, one is the Fajr Ghayr Asli, one is the sure dawn, and one is the other one. But after the third part of the night, there's a white light, which does, in fact, if you were to look at the Qibla or look in the direction of the Qibla, you would see a white light, a thin white light, but it stretches the entire length of the sky. This, if one was to leave the house, look in the direction of the Qibla. Of course, it can be obscured by any buildings and things like this. Then, if you see that light, then you know it's a faint light. It's still dark outside. It's not, sunlight. But if one were to see that, and it's on the horizon, right? So it runs horizontally. If you see that light, then you know it is time for the Fajr Salat. And usually, and sometimes, like when we were learning, we had to do it by error first, because usually, when we were first learning, we wouldn't, when we weren't good at indicating the true light from the false light, we wouldn't know until, we would time it. So, usually it only stays in until the sun begins to rise for 50 minutes or so. But during that time, that is the time that is the time for the Salat al-Fajr, right? And so when the sky begins to, when the light is no longer faint and stretches the horizon, when the actual rays of the sun begin to light the sky, to where then the dawn or the raising of the sun is approaching, right? So it's dark, but there's a light which goes from which stretches the parameter of the horizon. This is the time for Fajr. He says, وَوَقْتُ الظُّهْرِ إِذَا زَادَتِ الشَّمْسُ عَنَ الْقَبْضِ السَّمَاءِ وَأَخَذَ الظِّلُّ مِنْ زِيَادَةٍ ويستحب أن تتأخر في الصيف إلى أن يزيد ظل كل شيء ربح بعد الظل الذي زالت عليه الشمس. وقيل إنما يستحب ذلك في المساجد يدرك الناس الصلاة. وأما الرجل في خاص نفسه فأولى الوقت أفضل له. وقيل أما في شدة الحر فأفضل له أن يبرد بها وإن كان وحدها، لقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أبردوا بالصلاة فإن شدة الحر من فيح جهنم. He says the time of Dhuhr begins when the sun declines from the zenith of the sky and a shadow begins to grow. It is desirable in the summer to wait until the shadow of a thing reaches the quarter of its length. This is exclusive of the north-south shadow, which existed when the sun began to decline. One opinion is that this delay is desirable only for the mosque, so that the people can get there on time for the salat. Before a man by himself, the beginning of the time is preferable. Another opinion is that due to the intensity of the heat, it is preferable to do the salat when it is cooler, even if one is alone, because the Prophet ﷺ said, do your salat when it is cool, because the intensity of the heat is from the flames of hell. وآخر الوقت أن يسر ذل كل شيء مثله بعد ذل نصف النهار. And the end of the time is when everything shadow becomes as long as itself, exclusive of the north shadow of midday. So, so when the sun reaches its zenith, or when it's in the middle of the sky, right? We know that's what we mean by zenith, right? So it's not extreme east or west, right? It's in the middle. It's in the middle of the sky. This is when it's at its zenith, when it's at its highest point. Okay, at that point, if you look down, you'll begin to see your shadow, right? If the shadow, when the shadow is not so much that it precedes you, like it's twice your length, then this is Dhuhr. So this is always an indication. So if for some reason you don't know where the zenith in the sky is, look down at the ground, and if your shadow is at a quarter of its length or at its actual length, then this is the time of Dhuhr. Okay? If you look down at the ground and your shadow is twice what it should be, then the time is already elapsed. And so the Imam mentions here is that in regards to the salat in the masajid, that you could or the masajid can pray. They can delay it a bit because when the sun is at its zenith, it's very hot. And so it comes like right after it reaches its zenith when it begins to decline, but it's still like sort of in the middle of the sky. When it's not, when the intensity of the sun is not that great, then in the masjid they can still call for or pray the Dhuhr in that time. And then he backs it up with the hadith of the Prophet who said, "Do your salat when it is cool, because the intensity of the heat is from the flames of hell." The next part is the time of the Asr prayer. He says, "أول وقت العصر آخر وقت الظهر وآخر أن يصير ظل كل شيء مثله بعد ظل نصف النهار وقيل إذا استقبلت الشمس بوجهك أنت قائمة غير منكس رأسك ولا مطاطي له فإن النظرة إلى الشمس ببصرك فقد دخل وقت وإن لم تراها ببصرك فلم يدخل الوقت وإن نزلت عن بصرك فقد دخل الوقت والذي وصف مالك رحمة الله عليه إن الوقت فيها ما لم تصفر الشمس." He says the time of Asr begins with the end of the time of Dhuhr. The end of Asr is when everything's shadow is twice as long as it is in itself, exclusive of the north-south shadow of midday. Again, so I've actually jumped ahead of myself to the Dhuhr, but again, so the last part of Dhuhr, right? This is when the first part of Asr begins, and this is important to know too, because like when we get to dealing with issues of like combining salat and the Malikiyah, for example, when traveling, the mutma'id or the dominant opinion within the school is that you can only, for example, shorten your prayers while actually traveling, while in transit. And if you're going to, for example, shorten them, and if you're going to combine them, then you combine them at this time. At the time of there's a time where Dhuhr and Asr they're intertwined with one another, and this is indicated by what I said about the shadow, twice its length and things like this. Right. So during that particular time, this is called like the Dururi time for Dhuhr and the Ikhtiyari time for Asr. Dururi, every salah has two times, the Ikhtiyari and the Dururi. The Ikhtiyari is the preferred time, which of course is the beginning time, and the Dururi is that which is the necessary time before it goes out. But particularly with the Dhuhr and Asr, there's a time when they both overlap. So say for example one is traveling and they wanted to combine, the Dhuhr and Asr, the preferred method is to delay the Dhuhr until the Ikhtiyari time of the Asr and shorten and combine it at that time. Right? He says, and this is at the beginning of the Asr, which is the end of the Dhuhr. So he says the end of the Asr is when everything's shadow is twice as long as itself. He says one opinion is that if you turn your face toward the sun, standing straight, without tilting or bending your head, and you see the sun with your eyes, then the time of Asr has begun. If you do not see the sun with your eyes, the time has not begun. If it has gone down for your sight, the time certainly has come. The description of Malik is that the time for this salah is as long as the sun has not begun to turn yellow. Right? Because like when we're looking at the at the zenith, you can't look at the sun like that. So this is when the sun is retreating. In our case, this is retreating to the west. There's a time where if you look at it, like it says, if you do not see the sun with your eyes, the sun has not begun. If it has gone down from your sight, the time has certainly come. And then he says the description of Malik is at the time for those stars, as long as the sun has not begun to turn yellow. Once it begins to fade from that bright, blistering, blazing orange, then it's still okay. But this is as long as it's not beginning to turn yellow. Right, because then you'll see when that happens, you'll see the whole color of the sky itself changes. He says, ووقت المغرب هو صلاة الشاهد يعني الحاضر يعني المسافر لا يقصرها ويصلها كالصلاة الحاضرة فوقتها غروب الشمس فإذا توارز بحجاب وجبت الصلاة ولا تؤخره وليس لها إلا الوقت الواحد ولا تؤخر عنه. He says the time for the Salat of Maghrib is also called the Salat of one who is present or stationary, and this is because the traveler does not shorten the Salat on a journey, but he does it as if he's stationary. I mean, this 3 rakats is never, you can't shorten it to 2 in the case of Dhuhr also. He said this begins with the setting of the sun when it disappears over the horizon. Salat is obligatory and is not postponed. This Salat is only one time and is not postponed. Right, so I just said that the Salat have the ikhtiyari and daruri time. For the Maghrib, it's only one time. This is when the sun has gone, it is retreated beyond the horizon, and there's like yellow in the sky. So that is the time for Maghrib. That's the window is very, very short. That is the time for Maghrib, and it should not be postponed. That's why it's called hadir, that which is present. He says, وَوَقْتُ الصَّلَاةِ تَمَّ هُوَ صَلَاةَ الْعِشَاءِ وَهَذا اسم أولى بها غيوبات للشفق وشفق الحمراء الباقية من وباكة في المغرب من باكة الشعاع الشمس فإذا لم يبق فيها المغرب صفراء ولا حمراء فقد وجب الوقت ولا ينظر إلى البياض في المغرب فذلك لها وقت إلى ثلث الليل مما يريد تأخرها للشغل أو عذر ومبادرة بها أولى ولا بأس أن يؤخرها أهل المساجد قليلا ليجتمع الناس ويقرأ النوم قبلها وحديث غير شغل بعدها. He says the time for the Salat Atamma, which is the Salat of Isha, is the most proper name. This begins with the vanishing of the twilight. So this is after the color has completely vanished, right? Twilight is the redness remaining in the evening sky from the remaining rays of the sun. So the twilight is completely gone, right? So it's dark. From the redness of the remaining sky, from the remaining rays of the sun. If no yellowness or redness remains in the evening sky, the time of obligation has begun. The whiteness of the sky in the evening is not considered. Right? So it says, if no yellowness or redness remains in the evening sky, the time of the obligation has begun. So this is the time when it is permissible. Or the obligation, meaning the people who are makallaf, this is when the time has begun. He says the time lasts for the third. The time lasts all the way up until the third part of the night for those who wish to postpone the salat because of some work or other excuse. But to do the salat right away is better. There is no harm for those responsible for mosque to postpone it a little so that the people can gather. Sleeping before the salat is disapproved. So also is talking as talking after it with no utility, for no utility. Right, so the Isha Salat is, we have the longest, we usually have the longest window period for this one, and there's, again, no delay. I mean, there's no problem with delaying this one until one's work or chores and things is done. But then I think we should stop there. So the next week we can start with the adhan. We can do the adhan and go straight into the salat. I think this would be a good place to stop here for this week. So if anyone has any questions on what we read and explained today, now would be the time. Then we'll pick up next week with the adhan and with the iqamah.
Inshallah. Good. We'll take the questions now. Actually, I have one. And that is, as far as wiping over, the dispensation for wiping over leather socks and things that we can wipe over. We had someone on our show one time say that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a dispensation actually for sandals, right? Which is something I've never seen and did not, really make sense to me. But I was wondering, did you have any knowledge about that? Was there any?
No, I've never heard that. I've never heard it.
MashaAllah.
Again,
I was thinking to myself, if you wear more leather socks and it has a hole in it, there's a certain size, that you have to wipe your feet.
Like if you can put like in regards to the leather sock, like if you could put like your thumb through it, right. then the questions have been voided. So I have no idea what they're talking about with the sandals. I don't know. I've never heard of it. And that it seems logically to go against the whole reason for the disposition of wiping over the leather socks. I mean, your feet are getting wet. If your feet could get wet, then you wash your feet. I don't know about that. I can check with some of my teachers who are far more knowledgeable than myself. I myself have never heard of that. Out of all the books of fiqh I've studied with the different schools, I've never heard of wiping over sandals.
Right. MashaAllah. If anyone has any questions, if you're online, you just dial or push 1, and I would definitely go to you. We have there's Sifu Haq, Assalamu alaikum. You had your hand raised, so Assalamu alaikum. Sifu Haq. Okay, MashaAllah. Well, if anyone is on the computer listening, if you have any questions, the number is 914-338-0884. 914-338-0884. If you have any questions about anything we covered tonight. And I do have another question, actually. It's on the topic, but it's a little bit kind of off the particular subject, on topic, off the subject. And it's because there's been some questions this week that have come about with regards to the importance of actually following the school of thought just in general. And why would you say this that classes like this are important? And when we do study subjects like this, why must it be in accordance with a particular school of thought and not, just straight hadith or, ayahs from Quran or something like that? Something that we could probably post, YouTube or something like that to try to call more people towards this type of study, inshallah. What are your thoughts on that?
Allah says in the Quran, Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulul amr minkum. Actually, he says obey Allah and obey the Messenger and obey those in authority amongst you. According to Imam Tabari, who was the Imam of the Salaf in regards to the exegesis of the Quran. The Ulul Amr is the scholars. And just in every profession, in every walk of life, we rely upon trained professionals, right? The reason why, we at this level, we deal with just the rulings and the books according to schools is that there's too much information to be digested and to go over and to pour over and explain in order to relay this knowledge. I mean, if we were to just talk about all the evidences for the hadith, pertaining with how to make wudu, it would take us forever. And so the scholars who've dedicated their entire lives to this pursuit of knowledge have done this for us, and they've arranged these rulings so that it is accessible, for the layperson to know what is obligatory in regards to their deen, right? So this is, so by following these scholars of the Salaf and by following the conditions in which they lay down, we are fulfilling actually the Quranic ayah in regards to following Allah and following the Messenger and the people of authority. One of the evidences for this, for example, is in the Quran itself. I thought about this when we was mentioning Tayammum. There's a hadith which is Ahmed in the Muslim of Imam Ahmed. I believe also in Sahih Muslim, where some Sahabis were on a journey, and the time for Salah came, and one particular Sahabi was sick, and the others told him that he had to perform wudu. And they recited the verse in the Quran. Well, also, when you stand for salat, to wash your face and hands, and the ayah about the obligatoriness of washing before the prayer. And so he did it, and he did it, and his wounds were open due to the water, and he died. And when they got back to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "You killed him." To the other companion, he said, "You killed him. You killed him." And then that's when Allah revealed the ayah, that if they had referred back the Deen Istanbul, or like those who have the ability to decipher, those who know, he said, then the matter would have been made clear to them. But they didn't. They recited the ayah, seemingly, and which they thought was a proof for this particular instance, and they're responsible for a person's death. So in the Quran, this was actually revealed in relation to the Tayammum. I said, so if this was not acceptable during the life of the Messenger, and people were held accountable for speaking without knowledge and for speaking without having a thorough understanding, then what about today? What's changed? That we could, and we don't even know Arabic on that level. I've been studying Arabic for many years, but we can't even read the text of the Quran and the Hadith, without further explanations and everything. Even Arabs themselves, unless they've specialized, in that subject. I remember in Syria, we were having a class, and there was a sister, a Lebanese sister. She was listening to us talk, in Arabic. The class was in Arabic. And we were discussing things in Arabic, and she was like, "I don't know what you're saying," because we don't speak that way. We don't use the Fusha. And she's a born Arab. I said, so with all these, impediments and everything, why is it that, we think that we can just, come straight from the Quran and straight when dealing with these matters of legal importance? It's absurd. I said, but by following, these methods which have been laid down by the time of the Salaf to now, we are in fact following the Quran and Sunnah. Like I said, maybe at another time we can get a class dealing with the particular evidences for the positions. But at this point, what we're trying to do is just educate the people on what's obligatory for them to know to carry out their obligations. Now, if a person wants to know the reasons and the proofs behind these things, this is another matter, and this could be set up also. But first, the people must know the obligations, how to perform them. I mean, we don't go into a lawyer's office and try to tell him how to argue a case or where to look up case law, to defend his positions. I mean, so likewise, we shouldn't do that when it comes to Allah's Sharia.
MashaAllah. And once again, if anyone has any questions about what we covered tonight, anything coming with the Ghusl, rule, wiping over the Ghusl, like I said, just push number 1, and we'll definitely go to you, take your question. If anyone's on the computer, the number is 914-338-0884, and just push number 1 when we answer your question. All right, looks like, mashallah, no one's raising their hand, so I'm assuming everything is clear, inshallah.
I would encourage people to really, if they didn't take notes, go back and listen, take notes on the part of the times for prayer. I say, because I see that as a real, problem nowadays. People are scrambling for their watches and pulling out prayer time sheets.
Right, the prayer schedule, the innovation of the prayer schedule.
To determine the time for Salah, every Muslim should know how to determine the time for Salah without these things.
MashaAllah. Does anybody else have any questions about the times of prayer? Take those now. And, looks like there's no questions, so.
Okay.
MashaAllah.
With that, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu alaihi wa sallam. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa asri inna insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil-haqqi wa tawasaw bis-sabr. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Assalamu alaikum.
All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.